Hey y'all. All right. As you can see, back out in the garage again. And it's a good thing too. All right. First of all, I'd like to go ahead and say thank you so much for all the likes, the shares, the subscribes, all the communication back and forth, the questions, the comments, the good positive comments. It's really, really great. But in all of that comes the subject of our next video. And I want to talk to you about your questions. Now, some of you all are doing an excellent job with the questions. There's no doubt about it. You you all are on top of it and you're smart. You've got your things in order. You got your ducks in a row. But unfortunately, sometimes I get questions from folks who are they are like trying to ask very complex questions in a very simplistic manner. Okay? It's like, you know, wanting to know what is a good gear ratio to run in a rear end. For what? You know, or what's a good camshaft to run in an engine? You know, I mean, you might say, well, it's a Magnum 318. What are we going to be doing with it? What is your plans for it? What are you going to, where you know, what kind of car is it going to go in? Or is it going to go into a truck? What kind of truck? These are all questions that need to be asked. So I want you to also remember and understand that I love your questions. I love getting your questions, and I feel honored that you would ask me these questions because it feels great to pass along the information that I have and that I know. So, what I hope that you understand is that, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm drinking a Dr. Pepper and it's caused me a burp. So, anyway, what I hope you understand is that I'm not like fussing, I'm not coming down on anybody, I'm not venting. This is my fault. Okay? I'm to blame for this. I should have kind of outlined, done something like this months ago, maybe even a year ago, or something like that. The problem is that whenever you have a very complex question. Recently, I had somebody who fielded a question. He said, "I have a 318 Magnum. I want to make 400 horsepower. What do I need to use? What's good or bad? What kind of you know what kind of cam should I use? What kind of you know and what should I what kind of fuel system should I be using? Should I be using carburetor? Should I be using fuel injection? Yada yada yada." Okay, let's get something understood. Okay, whenever you're talking about a question as complex as that, and you don't give me anything other than just what I told you. You know, Magnum 318 wants 400 horsepower. What should he use? And he's should he use fuel injection or carburation? And what camshaft? Well, is it possible? Absolutely. It is definitely possible to do that. But camshaft selection is only part of the question. The thing is, that particular viewer is leaving out a lot. He's leaving a lot of open holes there. And then if I don't know, then I'm trying to like fill these holes or these gaps in the information of what he's going to do. The thing of it is, when you call somebody like Comp Cams or Crane or any of the cam manufacturers, or even somebody who sells all of this stuff, like Summit Racing, Jags, anybody, they're going to want to know these same questions. I'm going to be putting, I've got on this piece of cardboard behind me here. So why don't we get into that, and you can learn a little bit more about camshaft selection, and hopefully you'll learn why it's so important. Okay, the camshaft is basically the brains of an internal combustion engine. Now you might say, wait a minute, what about a computer? Well, you can think of the computer as sort of like how that we have a cell phone. Okay, we have ideas. The cell phone is like, you look it up on the cell phone to see, if you can actually do that or not. Maybe you have an idea of driving somewhere on a trip, and you need to know about, hey, is this road passable? Is this, is there any construction along the way? Da 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 da, that sort of stuff. Okay, you can think of a computer in a car as sort of a similar way. All right. The brains, though, how the engine is behaving and how it does things, that's the job of the camshaft. Okay, because the pistons, the rods, the connecting rods, the crank, everything else doesn't really care. It doesn't care. The camshaft is what determines your firing order. Okay? So, main considerations. You've got three main considerations for picking a camshaft. And when you do ask me, I'm going to want to know these three main things. You're going to have engine, usage, and vehicle. Okay? Engine, stock or modified. There's a lot of ways that can go. If we're talking stock, we're talking, well, like it says, it's stock. Stock from where it left the factory. Okay? However, we're talking modified, where there's a whole, that covers a pretty big, a whole lot. So modified could cover a lot of ground. Now with modified, we could have, it could be slightly modified, maybe, maybe they've got just like, say, dual exhaust and maybe a cold air intake on it. Or maybe they've went a little bit deeper and they've got headers and they've got maybe a bigger throttle body and, Magnum 318. Bigger throttle body, maybe even an MSD box. Or maybe they went really whole hog and they've got aftermarket heads, or they've had the heads ported, heavily ported with bigger valves. And or maybe even more so than that, they may even have nitrous, fuel injection, or, not fuel injection, nitrous, turbos, or even supercharger, And that brings another thing into it. Is it, naturally aspirated, or is it forced induction? These are things, forced induction, turbos, superchargers, nitrous. Naturally aspirated, of course, just breathing the air in through the throttle body, or, in some cases, a carburetor. But now, usage, okay? Racing. We're going to go straight to racing. Or what are we looking at? Are we looking at road racing, drag racing, circle track, some other kind of racing, maybe off-road, four-wheel drive racing, like out in the deserts out there out west or something. There's a lot of areas where this could go too. And each of these are going to have some specifics that are going to be tailored just to that. And let me also state something else too. When we're talking about camshaft selection, if you're talking like an engine, like, let's say you got a 440 and you want to make 350 horse, and you're going to put it into your satellite or maybe a pickup truck or some other car, and you want to make 350 horse or 375 horse, well, now that's going to be pretty simple. It's not going to be very complex. It's not going to be all that technical. You can pick a whole lot of different camshafts and you can make that. But unfortunately, this being a 318, we're going to need to know a lot more detail. And the usage, with it being 400 horse, I'm going to say he's leaning more towards maybe a street and strip kind of application. But I don't know for sure. So when we're talking usage, we could talk anything from four-wheel drives and off-road to towing or heavy trucks, RVs, cruiser, street and strip, daily driver, multi-use kind of stuff. There's a lot of ways that can go. Vehicle. We could just have regular old passenger cars like this Barracuda here, you know, and then lighter trucks like my D150 over there. We're talking smaller, lighter weight trucks that would be, maybe 4,000 pounds and less. Heavier trucks like, 3/4 ton and 1 ton, we're talking, you know, well above that weight, probably 4,500, 5,000 pounds or more. And with that in mind, you need to keep in mind that that weight is going to have an effect on that engine as well as the cam. So you want the characteristics of that engine to be tailored for what that truck or car is going to be used for. That's why this is so important. We also got, as far as usage is concerned, you could be talking about RVs, which are really, really heavy. So they're going to need a lot of low end, mid range torque. Boats, and as far as boats are concerned, there's a lot of ways they can go. There could be towing a skier. There can be just pleasure craft. You got lighter boats. You got heavier boats. You got boats that are just used for racing. There's just a lot of ways that can go. Work vehicles, there can be like flatbed trucks. There can be also work trucks like with the work beds going out to get to some area where maybe a generator or maybe a piece of agriculture or uh, construction equipment where they are working, and you need to get there and get to it, and you need to carry all the heavier weight. 4x4 and off road, you're looking, there's certain considerations there they're going to need. Of course, there's race cars, like we've already talked about a little bit. And of course, you got agriculture or construction. And these are just something I added later because, you know, sometimes you may have somebody who has an old tractor they're repowering and they want to have that camshaft more tailored to what they are using that piece of equipment for. Now, if we're talking an old tractor or something like that, there you go. But there's a lot of different ways any of that can go. So I hope this has helped you some. But there's also, you know, lobe separation angle, a tighter lobe separation angle. Now let's say these two here. Let's say this is your exhaust and this is your intake. This is a small block Mopar camshaft. So we're talking this lobe separation angle is the separation of these two peaks right here. Okay. Now I'm not exactly certain if this one's intake or this one's intake, but I think for the purposes of demonstration, this should be plenty good enough. So if we tighten this, if we were to move these closer together, then we could be going from, from let's say 118 to 110 or 109 or 108. And let me show you some of these here in these catalogs. Now, with the Speed Pro camshaft, we've got these cams here listed like this one, cam and lifter kit. Idle quality is good. Power range 1500 to 4500. Lift at 50 thousandths, 210 and 220. Valve lift, gross valve lift 429 and 442. And one low separation angle of 114. Now let's dive into this power range right here, 1500 to 4500. There's a lot of, you might think that this thing won't, this cam being in an engine, it won't make power until 1500 and it stops making power at 4500. That's incorrect. It will do pretty good making power before then and after then. It's just that between 1500 and 4500, it's going to be the most ideal. That's going to be the most ideal conditions. Okay. So don't be thinking that it won't, that it won't be any good before then or after then. So Don't be thinking like that. Now, it even says application notes 340, 275 horse. So, talking about that one. All right. Now, we come down here to this one here. We're talking about this small block cam. We're talking idle quality, smooth, 204 lift, 204 lift. This is a single pattern cam. And then let's see, gross. Well, this is 204 duration. My bad. All right, and then we've got the gross valve lift of 420 and 420, 110 lobe separation angle. Now, this one 114, this one 110. Okay, now we come down here, we've got one that says rough. Our torque, our power range, ideal power range is 3,000 to 6,200. So 230 valve lift at 50 thousandths, 480 and 480, single pattern cam, 109 degrees lobe separation angle. Now, something to think about, the lobe separation angle. Let me set up my tripod here. Now, lobe separation angle. If we, have the lobe separated out like that, okay, pretty far, then we're going to have a really nice idle quality, okay? I'll tell you what, let's turn around like that. It's easier on my wrist. So let's, like this, we're going to have a really good idle quality. It's going to be a nice, smooth idle, going to generate a lot of vacuum. However, this is also going to be really good for higher end torque, okay? Now, if we go and we tighten this up, maybe we go from, let's say, 114 to 112, maybe 110, then we're starting to favor torque lower in the RPM range, okay? And that will, if you, that has a certain effect on how the engine will perform. It also has an effect on the sound of the engine. So if you want that choppier, that raspy, ratty, kind of choppy idle, that chop, 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 sort of like maybe like a Harley Davidson, does. That comes from that tighter lobe separation angle. So, and then some folks will pick a cam that has 108. So that gets really radical. This Barracuda with a slant 6 in it, it's got a really tight lobe separation angle. Now, it doesn't make a lot of vacuum, okay? Which is ideal for this car because it doesn't have power brakes. So, that's some things you got to keep in mind. You got to take all of that into consideration. So, the things about all of this is what you really need to consider is that when you're picking a camshaft from a manufacturer or from somebody who's selling it like Summit Racing, Jags, etc., 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 you need to really be in tune with all of these things. You need to ask yourself some serious questions and be honest with yourself. Are you going to be happy with a camshaft that's going to be really, really ratty and radical in a daily driver? Or would you rather have something that's maybe not as radical, maybe with a little chop, a little bit of idle? Let's look at some more. Now this here is my Mopar Performance catalog. It's quite a few years old, but it still illustrates what I'm talking about. If we go here, these are the purple shaft cams. So we go here and we look at advertised duration of 248, 256. We got at 50, we got 211 and 218. Okay, at 50,000 valve lift. So let's see, center line of 110. Okay, that's installed center. That's the center line of the cam at 110 degrees, and that's also the same as your lobe center line. Okay, or lobe separation angle. So we got 410, 425, RPM 1,000 to 5,000. Applications and comments: drag, mild competition, and performance RV. So you want to get a little more performance out of your Winnebago, this would be a decent cam to be using. Now, here's another one. This is a 429, 444. Let's see, 114 lobe separation angle. Idle, from idle to 5800. Muscle car factory original. Okay. Let's see. Let's drop down here though. Let's see. Advertised duration 320, 320. At 50, we're talking 272, 272. And let's see. Center line 108, 533, 533. But 3800, 6400. Drag. Let's see. Competition with auto or 4-speed. Then, of course, we can go over here. They have a lot more cams for me to choose from. Now, so lobe separation angle really can play a big role in how an engine operates and how it behaves. And that is, that's why, a lot of cars nowadays, and trucks too, have variable valve timing. Why? Because it makes such a huge difference on how the engine operates. That variable valve timing can be custom tailored to certain RPM ranges, and can really make an engine that's maybe a small 1.8 liter 4-cylinder run like something that's, perform like something that has maybe 6 cylinders, and it should be 181, maybe a 3 liter, and that thing's sitting there with no turbo and it's making like 150 or 175 horsepower. That's pretty impressive. But that's why lobe separation, it's one of the reasons why lobe separation angle makes such a big difference. If we can, you can tailor all of these things from a camshaft, for a camshaft, to work better in an engine, and it gives that engine that little bit extra. Okay? So that's why I'm harping on this. That's why I keep going over this and telling you all, is that when you field a question to me, you ask me a question, I feel like I have a duty, I have a job, and I take that seriously. I'm not like just laughing it off and no, it's serious to me, because I want you all to understand that this is important to me, because I don't want to be one of those jerks that says, hey, I know all this stuff and I'm taking it with me. I'm not telling nobody. Yeah, no, I'm not like that. I know this stuff and I want to help you all know it too. So that's the point. Okay? So that's why it's important to get, don't leave holes, don't leave gaps in the information. Let me know what you're doing, what your plans are. Figure out, what kind of engine, okay? We need to know engine size, modifications, what's your future plans for it. We need to know what kind of vehicle it's going in. We need to know what kind of transmission it has, how many gears it's got, automatic or manual. If it's automatic, does it have, are we going to have a stock converter or a stall converter? What are we doing here? These are all questions that are very solid. These are the same questions you're going to be asked when you are ordering a camshaft from anybody. So, okay. I think I've covered everything here pretty well. If you have any further questions, please bring them to my attention. Post them down below. You're smart. You know what to do. Okay? Thank you very much. I'll try to do the best I can to answer your questions. And until next time, God bless and have a great one.